What up, Holmes? This is Roger Dale Martin saying, get down with the rebound sound. This is Divine Aggression Radio. Let's do it!
On this episode of Divine Aggression Radio, this is very special to me, as most of the time they are when I interview someone that I've listened to for the biggest part of my life and has played a part in the soundtrack of my life. When I was 13 years old, I was introduced to the music of Vengeance. When I bought the Human Sacrifice tape in 1989 and I watched Metal Mardi Gras and saw these guys headbanging themselves into oblivion. Who would have thought all these years later I would have the honor and the pleasure of speaking with a member of that band? You also know him from Die Happy. His latest project is Reign of Glory, which is just fantastic. And I want to welcome to the show Mr. Roger Dale Martin. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Well, you're welcome, Kelly, and that was quite an introduction. I appreciate that, brother.
Well, it's all true, man. Back in the day, watching the Metal Mardi Gras, I kept getting you guys confused. I didn't know who was who. I knew who the vocalist was. I knew Glenn was on drums, and then I couldn't figure out who the rest of you guys were. I said, because now I think I got it. The guy with the Les Paul was Larry Farkas.
Right.
The dude with the flying V was Doug.
Yes.
And you had all the blonde hair standing on the left, headbanging like crazy.
Okay, you got everybody pegged right there.
Because even when I watched an interview that you and Doug did with Les Carlson, you were going to do, I think it was Die Happy with a Vengeance. And you guys,
that was not too long ago. That was a benefit concert for a man named Dale Huffman, and
he was one of my best friends.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, well that's what that was all about. We really felt like we needed to be a part of that because it was an amazing dude, Dale was.
Oh, absolutely. He brought my band into Cornerstone in 2008 to play the Sanctuary tent for Metal Pulse Day. I was in another band that he signed to his record label, Metal Pulse Records. Mm-hmm. It was the best record deal I've ever been signed to in my life. And moreover than that, I can't say enough good things about Dale because he was an influence on me getting into internet radio. I wanted to be like him, and he was such a dear, wonderful friend. I miss him so much. Such an awesome guy. So I actually did not know that was a benefit concert for him.
Yeah, that's what that was, and we put together a set list of Vengeance and Die Happy, mostly Vengeance material. Is what we did right there, and we had a lot of fun. We had a guest vocalist. His name was Jim Settle. He's from a band called Hand of Fire. Okay. But other than that, was me and Glenn, Doug and Larry, and then we had Jim on vocals. I think probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine the Vengeance Rising stuff vocally is a little bit easier to do than the Die Happy stuff because Robin is just amazing.
Well, yeah, I know Robin. He's phenomenal, and he still is, dude. Obviously, if you've heard any of the we got a couple of singles from Reign of Glory, and he is just one. Okay, he is, man. He's on top of his game, and a lot of times singers they go downhill, but not Robin. Robin is actually better than he was back in the day, and it's incredible. It's incredible to see, and I'm loving it.
The last thing I heard from him was in 2013, All Hail the Power 2 with PK Mitchell, because I actually interviewed Mitch on the show back then, and he was talking about how he was working with Glenn. Glenn was doing drums, and Robin was doing the vocals, and we were talking about the process of recording long distance and stuff like that. So that was the last thing I heard. from Robin. So when I heard "Welcome to Reality," and I'm like, man, that vocalist is so familiar. I know that guy, and then I find out it's Robin. Like, well, duh. I listen to it again. Well, of course it's him. But great stuff. I want to go back a little bit. I don't know how much you've shared your personal story, your testimony. I know I'm a drummer and a bass guitarist, and I know a lot of times being a bass guitarist, when somebody hears a recording, the first thing they usually don't say, who's playing bass on that? So a lot of times they don't go to us for interviews, and I don't know how often you've had a chance to share your testimony and how you got started in the music industry in the band and ended up from California to Tennessee, of all places. I would just like to kind of know your story, how you got to know the Lord, and I know you've got a past with a really good friend of mine, Pastor Bob Beeman. I know he has to come into play somewhere, and I would like for you just kind of tell your story.
Okay. Now, I was born a long time ago.
Join the club?
I grew up in the country, and I'm talking about a real small town in Oklahoma. It's called Pleasant Hill, and probably maybe 100 people in the community. And that's basically where I'm from, Pleasant Hill, Oklahoma. And there was a little church there, the little Methodist church that Mom and Dad took me to. In fact, you could say I grew up in church in a way.
Right.
And when I was about 5 or 6 years old, there was like 2 or 3 teenagers at church, and they were telling everybody the Beatles are coming on. Man, the Beatles going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, and so we watched the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was all excited. And the Beatles came on. This was back in 1964. I was actually 6 years old, and man, it blew me away. It really did. And then we used to have an after church fellowship with the young people, and the same teenagers. One guy brought a guitar, and we started singing these Beatles songs. She Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. And man, I was hooked on music at this point. And when it comes to knowing God, I remember praying when I was 4 or 5 years old. I remember there was a big prayer that I prayed, and I remember that prayer, and God answered that prayer for me. Then when I was about 12, Kelly, they used to have these revivals. They called them revivals, and the preacher was up there and said, all right, anybody who wants to dedicate their life to the Lord, come on down. And they were singing this song called Just As I Am. And man, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. And so I get up and I go down to the front and give my life to the Lord. And these revivals, generally they would be like maybe 3 or 4 nights in a row in the same church. And then the next night we went, and the altar call, here I go down to the altar call. And the third night I'm going down, and then on the 4th day, my mom said, Roger, come here. I said, yeah. You do not have to keep going down there every night. I said, I don't know. I said, once is good. I said, okay, sounds good to me. So that was my first public declaration of loving God. And so at the same time, when I was 12, I was actually I was invited to play in a band in this little community close to us. And these were older guys. I'd say they were probably 16, 17, maybe even 18. And I was a bass player. They asked me to play bass. And so I was 12 years old. And then we played, Jefferson Airplane. We played Cream, Sunshine of Your Love, stuff like that. And I loved it. It was fantastic. And then we had a gig coming up. And it was at somebody's house. And I don't know who it was, but somebody brought a 6-pack of beer. And my dad found out about it. And Kelly, that was it. That was my career with that band. It was done. Dad said, okay, you're done with it. So anyway, and then after that, in high school, I got in. Basically, I really lucked out for a lot of reasons. I'm from the country in Oklahoma, but when I was a teenager, um, there was a skating rink in Idabel, Oklahoma, that after everybody skated on Saturday nights, they would have some bands from Dallas come and play. And Kelly, these guys were awesome. They were so good. Texas is a state that has a lot of great musicians, and they did back then in the day too. They were playing stuff like Steely Dan, Reeling in the Years, Doobie Brothers, and things like that, and they were absolutely fantastic. And that's where I really caught the bug as far as playing in a band. And I would just sit and watch these guys, watch the guitar players, watch the bass player, watch everybody perform. And once again, that was a big education in my brain for me. Also, when I was, you know, I liked, as far as my influence goes, when I was real young, I liked Grand Funk. And Grand Funk had a bass player named Mel. And he was a bass player that kind of ventured out a little bit. It was a three-piece band, and he played some really, really good licks. I can tell that you know who Grand Funk is.
Absolutely.
And I was a big Mark Farner fan, and he influenced my hairstyle back in the day. But when I was in high school, I got with the band, especially the first year out of high school. Started going to college, and there was a local band I played in. We were a cover band, and we played all kinds of clubs and things like that, beer joints, whatever you want to call it. But back in the day, back then, we actually made some money. You could make money, and you could actually make a living playing clubs back in the mid to late '70s in Oklahoma and in a lot of places. I don't know how that is now, but there was one time I was one of the main things that happened to me as far as musical education. And back in Oklahoma, there was a musical family. They were called the Hark Riders, and I was invited one time to play with this young guy. He was 16, and I was probably around 23 or 24, I guess. And he was a child prodigy. The guy knew all the Van Halen stuff. He knew all the Ozzy with Randy Rhoads stuff. It was phenomenal. And he gave me an education and said, Roger, we're going to have a Van Halen and Ozzy tribute band. And basically three-piece guitar, bass, and drums, and a vocalist. And I said, let's do it. And he was really good. And he kind of gave me my education as far as a bass player's role in a band. And these songs like Crazy Train, I learned those. I learned all the Van Halen stuff. And he showed me note for note. And that helped me a lot. And also, he let me understand the bass player's role, especially for Van Halen or Ozzy. Those guys played real basic riffs. If you listen to any Van Halen stuff, Michael Anthony, he plays root notes. He'll play eighth notes, and he'll pedal on the main chord. And really, what that does, that really hit me hard. AC/DC. You don't hear much about the bass player at AC/DC, but the guy's fantastic. Yeah. He's a huge part of AC/DC. And I was in a Cult band recently, and the Cult has just a basic driving bass beat, and that's what I like to specialize in. One of my influences is D.D. Ramone. He man, he downpicked almost everything he did. And as far as my thrash music and stuff like that, I'd say D.D. Ramone was my main cat. But anyway, this is in Oklahoma, and just a small town. And you got to be in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
And, at the time, my day gig was a construction job, and I worked for a construction company called Brown and Root. Now, Brown and Root was the biggest construction company back in the 70s in the whole world. And I would travel with them. And in fact, I went to Arkansas.
That's where
wherever I traveled, I'd start up a band there. And then we had I had a gig with those guys, the construction people in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I put a band together down there. And then we went down to Mississippi. So I was always putting a band together. And but once again, when it comes to success in music, you have to be in the right place at the right time. And so I was in between jobs, and I was playing this with this copy band. And I got a phone call from one of the guys in a construction company, and they were in Los Angeles. They were actually a little town outside of Los Angeles called Fontana is where they were working. And I got excited about it because I knew what was going on. This was like 1984.
Yeah.
And Motley Crue, Rats, these guys were just getting started in Los Angeles. And so I got excited. I said, yeah, I'll be there. And I packed up everything and I went to Fontana, California. Now, here was I guess, I arrived in California. I arrived in L.A., in Fontana. Once again, it's about, I don't know, 50 or 60 miles from actually the center of Los Angeles. But it's kind of all L.A. I showed up on October the 31st. It was Halloween night in 1984. And that was a Friday night. And the very next day was Saturday. And I found a music store, and I went into the music store, Kelly. And there was only two people in there. There was the guy who owned the store, and there was a long-haired musician over there. And just kind of plinking around, and I went up to the store owner, and this was real early. I got there as soon as they opened. I said, dude, my name is Roger Del Martin. I'm a bass player, and do you know any bands that are looking for a bass player? And the guy looked at me, and he pointed to the to the long-haired guy in the store, and he said, that guy right over there is looking for a bass player. And so I went over there, and I said, hi, I'm Roger. And he said, hi, my name is Dave Enos. I said, I'm a bass player. He said, okay, we'll grab a bass off the wall. And so basically I had an audition right then and there.
Oh, wow.
I plugged in, he plugged in, and of all things, he started playing the intro to Crazy Train. And because I'd been in the copy band, I knew it note for note, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I launched into it. And on all these songs, Kelly, if you're a bass player, you know, sometimes the bass player will play some pretty, I would say, intense licks. It's more complicated than you might think to make it sound right. And so those little inflections and stuff, I knew that. And so we got through, and we got through with the song. It said, okay, do you have any bad habits? And I was like, what do you mean bad habits? And anyway, it turned out the guy was Dave Enos, and he was the lead guitar player and the leader of a band called Emerald.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so he said, I want you to go somewhere with me. And then I went. He went to a church. He took me to a church in Riverside called Harvest Christian Fellowship, and the preacher, his name was, gosh, what was the guy's name? Anyway, he had a band playing that night, and it was the Durrell Mansfield band. And the Durrell Mansfield band, yeah, they were singing and playing, and the Durrell, he's very evangelistic when he plays, and said, all right, anybody wants to rededicate their life to the Lord, come on down. And I shot up, and my hand was up in the air, and I'm like, well, that's me right there. And that's when my walk with the Lord became very tight. And of course, the next day or whenever it was, I actually did an audition with the band in the studio. Obviously, I passed the audition and started playing with the group Emeralds.
See, I didn't know you were a part of that group.
Yeah, I was. I was in the lineup that actually recorded the album, the one that's famous. But that's kind of that's a story in itself. But that was the thing. As far as Christian bands, they were. I knew about Emerald, and I knew about.
Striper?
Well, no, I didn't know about Striper at the time. I knew a guy named Larry Norman. I knew a guy named Larry Norman. And then And then when I'm talking to Emerald, they introduced me to Striper a little on, but that was it. It was Emerald and Striper. That's all I knew of as far as Christian bands, and and so those guys, they had a serious work ethic. In fact, we rehearsed almost every night for about a year. Now we'd take Sundays off, but other than that, we rehearsed them, and then we had a couple of 3, 4 gigs too. But it was more about really hard work, and they kind of taught me how to work every night, and so
So
that was good.
you're on the
And
Armed for Battle album?
yeah, Armed for Battle. Now, what happened? We go to record, and then back then, every recording was very expensive, and everybody kind of put up their ante, you might say, to record. And I recorded the whole album, but there is times, Kelly, when I am supposed to leave a group, and I actually left the group before the album was finished. Now, my part was done, and so I left the group, and I went to a sanctuary service because Emerald. Before I left the group, they lost their singer. They were looking for a singer. That was one of the things that was difficult for those guys. They couldn't keep a singer, and so
I know the feeling.
Yeah, when I was in the band, I think I saw 3 different singers, and we lost their singer or whatever. And then I was like, I'm going to try to find a singer. And somebody told me about Sanctuary. Said, well, there's a lot of musicians at Sanctuary, and Sanctuary was in the South Bay, which is kind of the beach area of Los Angeles, and they were kind of out in Whittier at one time, and so I'm going, well, I'll go to Sanctuary, whatever that is, and I'll see if I can find some musicians. Well, I'll go into the church, and this was in the afternoon because Sanctuary had their service in the afternoon, and there was a big dude standing at the door, great big afro, and big grin on his face, and he said, "Hi, I'm Pastor Bob." And I said, "Hi, I'm Roger Del Martin." And we shook hands and said, "Come on in here." And that's when I first met Pastor Bob, and that's when I got introduced to Sanctuary, the church. And I was pretty much in maybe the second or third service, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Sanctuary started from a Bible study that Striper was doing, believe it or not. They used to throw out Bibles at their concerts. People got saved. They started a little Bible study, and that's where Sanctuary grew out of that. And so I was pretty much there in the beginning of Sanctuary, and I watched Sanctuary grow. And I was in back in those days. Glam was king. Glam was rocking. Motley Crue, all those bands, Poison. That was the king of things happening in LA. This was before thrash, this was before speed metal, and the Sunset Strip. All those were hair bands, and that's what I was into. Emerald was a big glam band. Their music wasn't quite so glam, but their look and they had that whole Los Angeles glam look. And after I quit those guys, and I was at Sanctuary, and I did some shows with a band called Holy Rites. They were extreme glam band from Riverside, and I was going back and forth with rehearsal and shows, and it was just the distance was too far.
Right.
So I said, okay, I can't play with you guys anymore. And so I was kind of in limbo a little bit. Bob asked me to play for the Sanctuary Praise Band, so I was on the worship team there. And then I don't know if you know about the history of Sanctuary, but it was all heavy. It was all heavy metal. There wasn't any thrash going on at all. And then Pastor Bob, he started ministering to this young man who was really into the speed metal scene. We didn't call it thrash back in the day. We called it speed metal. And he introduced me to the guy, and he said, Roger. In fact, he called me and Doug in the office. Me and Doug told him, he said, look, you guys, there's a big need to have a band that plays this speed metal. I said, I've been counseling this one dude, and man, there's a lot of people into that. So, you know what? I have a vision, you guys. let's put together a speed metal then and introduce Jesus to that genre. And so me and Doug were like, heck yeah, let's do it. We did the thumbs up, and then we took off, and we went through a bunch of players, and we finally found we found, and that's another big story too, Callie. We started off. We went through a bunch of players, but we got our people. We got everybody together for Vengeance, and that was a heck of a deal. I guess the first band that we had was Glenn Rogers on guitar.
Oh wow!
And a guy named Steve Bertram on the drums, and we rehearsed 3 or 4 times, and Glenn had some songs that he was showing us, and we were that genre, Kelly was different for me. I was used to Ted Nugent and Kiss and Ozzy and those kind of things. Now speed metal was a different animal, and plus Glenn had a special way of his rhythm. His moves were different from me. They were offbeat, and it took me by surprise. It's like, crap, what are you doing here? Show me that again. And so me and Doug we were educating ourselves on speed metal. We were listening to a lot of SOD, Slayer, Venom. Those were our 3 main bands that we were listening to and looking at. And what Glenn was showing us, well, after 3 or 4 rehearsals, I'm thinking it was more like 3. Glenn, he said, Roger, Doug, I can't do this band. I'm going to do something else. And he said, okay. I said, yeah, these songs you've been working on, you guys can have them. And just more power to you. I love you, mean it, and good luck to you. And so he took off, and Steve Bertram took off also. So it was just me and Doug left. And we didn't even practice. We went Doug and I started looking for musicians, and we had Mike Betts on drums. We actually had a woman on vocals at one time. And,
oh wow!
Yeah, nothing was really working out until Doug said, "Roger, a good friend of mine's name is Larry Farkas. He's playing with Deliverance, but now he's a little bit heavier than the other guys. He really wants to go completely." Speed metal, thrash. I said, okay, let's go check him out. Let's go watch him play. So we went to Hollywood and we saw Deliverance, and man, I'm telling you, Larry was stuff. And so Doug and I bribed him. We stole him. Deliverance. Actually, anyway, Larry joined with us, and then Glenn Mancruso was he was a drummer for the worship band, and he had heard all about what we were doing, and he said, all right, you guys, I'll play the drums for you temporarily. Now you're going to get somebody else. I'm just going to do it till you find somebody else, because I like what you're doing spiritually. I think it's a fantastic thing. So we said, okay. And so we started jamming with Glenn on the drums, and basically, me and Doug were going, okay, we've got some songs already, and we were trying to show them Glenn's songs. And we got as close as we could, I guess, you know what I'm saying? And we did give him credit on the first album for songwriters credits, but the songs, they kind of turned out how they turned out. They were, right, you might say, a Vengeance version of the Glenn Rogers songs.
Right. Yeah, songs have a way of evolving like that. Yeah, okay.
And then we were looking for a vocalist, and then it was Pastor Bob who said, you should check out Roger Martinez. And I'd met Roger Martinez back when I was in Emeralds. And even then, Martinez, he invited me to some kind of thrash band that he was wanting to do. And I was like, dude, no, because the glam was king, and I wasn't. I was building momentum as a musician in LA, and I was not going to kind of change paths, you might say. And so I said,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to do it. And then he mentioned Roger Martinez, and it reminded me, yeah, that guy might be pretty good. So Martinez shows up at the next rehearsal, and man, gave him the microphone, and he started doing his thing, and that was it. Within 10 seconds, we knew we had the band together.
Okay. I read a blurb you had put, I think, on Facebook, and you were talking about the transition from Vengeance Rising to Die Happy, and you mentioned all hell broke loose, and then you didn't have a vocalist anymore, and then that's when you met Robin. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Okay, now what it was when we were in Vengeance, and we were on our second tour, and things weren't working out, and a lot of things weren't financially, things weren't working out, just because we were getting stiffed at these gigs, and we were at breach of contracts and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
Now, like I said before, Kelly, there are times when I know, okay, my time in this band is done.
Right.
And I had felt that way about Vengeance, because everything was good, and then all of a sudden I felt, okay, it's time for me to stop. There was quite a few reasons for that. But when we got back, in fact, I was so ready to go. Our last show for the second Vengeance tour was in Austin, Texas, and as soon as we were done with Austin, I got a plane. I hopped on the plane and I flew to L.A. I said, see you guys later. And so when they came back, and on the way back, on the way on the plane, I said, okay, I'm done with Vengeance. I'll tell the guys to get another bass for them. And once we got back, everybody else was feeling the same way. And like, okay, let's call it good. And we owed a little bit of money from the tour, some T-shirt sales, whatever. And what we decided to do was we're going to put a big show together in Los Angeles, because that was our home base, believe me. And we were going to sell all of our merchandise, because we had plenty of merchandise to sell, and get ourselves out of that and call it good. That was our plan. Now, all the time this was going on, Martinez was in Australia, and he was producing
Mortification.
Yes, sir, Mortification. And so when he came back, we had a big meeting. All right, Roger, here's what we're going to do. And Martinez says, no, we're not. No. And he wanted to keep the band. He wanted to keep the band. So we said, okay, if you want to keep the band, you got to take care of this debt. All this is yours, and more power to you, basically. And so that's what happened. We signed a little contract. The contract said, I, Roger Martinez, am responsible for the debts of Vengeance Rising. And we all signed it. That was it. He didn't buy the name. He didn't do any of that. We just made sure, okay, go ahead and continue, pay off the bills yourself. You're responsible. And he was very happy about that. I got an invitation to play in a Southern rock band, and these guys, it was called Triple Ace Band, and they were hooked up with a couple of biker groups. The biker groups, one of them was called Cross Motor Club, and the other one was Bikers for Christ. And they would play biker runs. We would play biker runs. We did prisons too. So I went straight from Vengeance over there and playing in the Triple Ace Band. And then about that time, Doug Thane called me, and he said, hey, Roger, I've got a record deal. I just signed a record deal with Frontline Records, and I'm going to put an album together. Would you like to play bass on it? And I was still with the band, Triple Ace, and I said, I'll record with you. And so it was just me and Doug. And he had some songs written. Once again, I didn't sign any record deal for Die Happy. In fact, nobody did. That was Doug Thane's. That was his baby. And he said, well, what do you think about Larry? I said, well, I asked him if he wants to play. But anyway, next thing you know, he's on board, and so is Glenn Mancuso, which surprised me. I mean, I didn't think I would ever do anything else with the guys. And so we had a singer lined up, and that didn't work out. Our singer did not work out. In fact, it didn't work out the night before we were scheduled to record.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, was it a melodic?
That's when I said when all hell broke loose. Okay, that's when it was. It was the night before. So we lost our singer the night before we were scheduled to go into the studio.
Well, I have a question. Was it a melodic vocalist, or was it more in the lines of a heavier growl type vocal?
No. This was this is very melodic, very very famous vocalist.
Cool.
Yeah, he could. Yes, he could pull it off, and no, he was not a growler.
Okay.
But that didn't work out, and so all of a sudden we're like, crap. And we'd seen Robin before at Sanctuary, and we all knew he was good, and we thought, well, we'll bribe him with a bunch of money and see if he'll do this. And we called him up, and he said, yeah. And he went into the studio. This was Robin Kyle Bizzarri, and man, he did not know these songs. He didn't know anything. He had lyric sheet, and he had Doug in front of his face. All right, dude, right here. Here's how this line goes. Okay, up, higher. Okay, and then, okay, hold that. No, I tell you, Robin stepped up to the plate and he knocked a home run for Die Happy. It was incredible. He got her done in record time. We paid him, and pretty much that was it. Now, if you'll notice the album cover on the first Die Happy, Robin was not even in it.
Right.
He was kind of like a guest vocalist in a way, and but it turned out to be more than that. So after the recording, I was still in the Triple Ace band, and I said, "I love you, I mean it. I'll see you guys later." And then I took off, and that was my thing with Die Happy. Now, Die Happy kept on going with it, and they did another album, and they got this bass player, Greg Chase, on, and the guy's absolutely fantastic. Actually, it was a great honor for me for him to take my place because he's so good. A total pro. And they did a Die Happy 2, and I think they did a live, something live.
Intense Live.
Yeah, okay. And so that was my thing with Die Happy. And that was my first introduction to Robin Bizzarri.
Now, after you left Die Happy, of course, back then there was no internet. I had to wait for the next issue of Heaven's Metal magazine to come out just to get a little blurb here or there on what people were doing. So I completely lost track of you. And between there and seeing the interview you did with Les Carlson for the Die Happy with a Vengeance, I have no idea what you were doing, where you were, what bands you were in, if you were in any, and what was happening. So fill in the gap, that basically almost like 30-year gap between Die Happy and now.
All right. And this is a gap that most people don't know anything about. Well, I was during this time period, I was playing with the Triple Ace band. I started waking up in the morning, and I started thinking about one thing. For about 6 months, I was thinking Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm like going, I don't know what it was. And so I went and talked to Pastor Bob about it. I said, Pastor Bob, this is crazy. For the last 6 months, I wake up in the morning and I think about Nashville, Tennessee. And Pastor Bob said, dang, Roger, I'm moving to Nashville. I said, what? He said, yeah, I'm going to start a rock and roll tent revival in Nashville. Nashville is a state that's like a hub of these other states. Within 2 hours, you can get into 4 or 5 different states from Nashville.
Yes.
And I was like, dude. And so I thought to myself, that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do next, rock and roll tent revival in Nashville. So moved to Nashville, and the rock and roll tent revival did not materialize.
Pan out? Okay.
It did not. And at the time, my personal life went nuts. Okay. I'll spare you my personal life. Some bad things happened, but I found myself working quite a bit, and music was transferred to church. I started playing the church circuit in Nashville. In other words, Nashville. I played the Nashville church circuit for 15, 20 years. And when I say I played the church circuit, how they were Nashville back when I moved to Nashville in 1994. And back then they called it Music City, USA, and it was Music City. LA was going downhill as far as music was. Seattle was getting up, was raising up, and Nashville country scene and just the music scene was exploding in Nashville in 1994. And all the churches there were very advanced musically. Back in the day with Vengeance and these other bands in California, we rehearsed all the time, every night, and we really didn't write anything down. It was all just in our brains, in our memory. Okay, here's where we're going, here's how we're going to do the song. But in Nashville, playing for the church, they'll say, okay, Roger, you're scheduled for Sunday on the bass, and they'd hand me some charts. Here's your charts. We'll see you on Sunday. And I'm like, dude. So all of a sudden, I had to go into the technical aspects of music. I began my musical education as far as writing things down, as far as chord charts. Now, when I was in California, I did take some college classes. In fact, me and Glenn Rogers, we'd see each other on campus from time to time in LA because I was taking fundamental classes and he was taking other music classes too. So it kind of started in California. But once I went to Nashville, that's when the field work started. I don't know. When you go to college, you learn the theory, and then when you go to work, you learn how to apply it. Right. So basically, when I moved to Nashville, I went to work as a musician when it comes to churches. And so they'd hand me these chord charts, and then a lot of times they would say, Roger, here's a bass line here. We want you to play this bass line, and then they'd spell it out in musical notation. Well, okay, that's where I had to bow up and get it, and really, I learned my. I guess I went deeper into music theory, right, and all those things, and so I played. When I say I played the church circuit, wherever I was, I joined a church for a while, and then I play in their worship band, and then if I go to another church and I'd play there, so I probably played in 4 or 5. 6 or 7 different worship teams in the Nashville area, and I kept my chops up, and I learned all the contemporary stuff, contemporary Christian things, and basically it's a formula. Once you have the formula down, you pretty much got every song. Yeah. Okay, you're laughing. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm the drummer in the praise team at my church, but I totally get it.
Yeah, now I quit playing in church, Kelly, because everything became karaoke. You probably know what I'm talking about. It started with technology. In the very beginning, all the karaoke stuff started with call-outs. Actually, they would count down the song. In the monitors, we played old school in the beginning. In the monitors, you'd hear a 1, 2, 3, 4, and go, and song. And then they started doing this thing called in-ear monitors. Yep. And then all of a sudden, you had what was called call-outs, where there would be a voice saying, "Okay, here comes the chorus," and here goes, and 1, 2, 3, and stop. Yeah. Drums in, bass in, and it was basically coached you through the whole song. And I was okay with that. And then technology advanced to the point where basically they're playing the song. They have the song recorded, and they can pull out the bass player and put you in there if you so desire. And so the first time, okay, I was playing with the group, and I got sick. I had to call in sick. And worship leader said, "Don't worry about it, Roger. No problem." Well, I came back to, I was rehearsal the next week, and I said, "Oh, Roger, it was like he wasn't. Nobody even paid any attention." I said, "Next time we'll put a cardboard cutout on stage, and nobody will know the difference." So it didn't matter because everything was popped in. And so that's how they do it. And I said, "Okay, look, I'm not even needed anymore." Mm-hmm. So that's when I quit playing the church scene, and right after that, my wife said, "Roger, why don't you? Do you want to? In other words, do you want to get back in the music scene?" And she didn't even consider a worship team as the music scene, as far as I was concerned. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, maybe so." And anyway, she encouraged me to get Pro Tools. And so I built a recording studio here at the house.
Cool.
And so I got Pro Tools, and that was a big one for me, Kelly, because I'm not really computer savvy at all. And so it took me about a year to get things up and running. There was some guys from Sanctuary, a guy named Chris Dorman. He called me and he said, "Hey, Roger, we're doing a Sanctuary project, and we got a musical thing going on, and a guy named Nick Layton, he's the leader, and he's wondering if you'd lay down some bass tracks for him." I said, "Okay, well, let me have his number." And so I called Nick, and he said, "Yeah, Roger, I've got some stuff," and I asked him to send me a demo tape, and it was fantastic. Nick is a fantastic player.
He is phenomenal.
We recorded Roxology last year. It's just an instrumental album of old hymns like The Old Rugged Cross, I'll Fly Away, all those old hymns we did in a rock context. And so the thing about this that was really good with me and Nick was a worship pastor. And so I've been working with worship pastors, and so all those songs, they had charts and everything. So it was easy for us to establish a musical connection,
right?
Me and Nick. And so we did this thing called Roxology, and Bill of Rocks Records, Bill Rocks, he signed. Mm-hmm. He said, "Yeah, look, I'll put the thing out for you." And so we did that, and we're happy with it. And then earlier this year, maybe in January, Nick called me and he said, "Roger, I got a vision for a new album." Well, I said, "Tell me about it." They said, "I want to go like a 70s album of what was happening in the 70s, and again venture into the 80s, the 70s and 80s album, something with melody and and harmony and things like that." Because with both, I felt like, man, good idea, because a lot of the thrash, a lot of the speed metal, the death metal, I think everybody was ready for something melodic, something with some vocals.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's a good idea, Nick. And then so me and Nick started working on the tunes, and once we got 10 songs, we're like, okay, now we need somebody to sing this. And we definitely wanted vocals, and we needed a drummer. And we weren't too concerned about a drummer right off the bat. We were concerned. We were concerned with vocals, and so I knew quite a bit of vocals, and I started getting a hold of people. Okay, and I got a hold of a bunch of people, Kelly. We're talking about. I'm not going to name any names because I contacted a lot of people, and everybody was interested. If people weren't interested, they'd tell me no, and most of the time they'd give me an alternative. I said, "Well, I don't know this person, but I have somebody over here. I have a student that might be interested." And so what we did, we asked people to give us demo tapes. We had a song, and we sent it to them, and would say, uh, lay something down, send it back to us. And we had some guys that were pretty good. In fact, I remember 3 that we were thinking about going, yeah, man, this, yeah, we were going, I don't know, and if they were all good, believe me, his vocals were fantastic. And,
now, were these local guys or were they from all over?
From all over, from the Christian metal community. And I had anyway. I don't want to. I don't want to mention any names, but they're all fabulous.
That's fine.
And then I said, dude, I said, Nick, man, I'll tell you who would be perfect for this is Robin Calabasari. And he goes, I'm Die Happy. I said, yeah, it'd be perfect. But I say, I'd known for a long time that said that Robin, he was done with music. In fact, 20 years ago, I was told he's got a business. He's a businessman now. He's not doing music. He said, I'm done with it. And I said, okay. And so actually, I was in a group message from the guys from Vengeance. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I don't know what they were talking about, but I asked him. I said, hey, dude, what's up with Robin? If anybody should know, it would be those guys at Die Happy. And they said, oh, he's not. He's selling dog treats. He's a businessman. He doesn't do anything. And I said, okay. And I was kind of bummed. But then I tell you what, the very next day, Pastor Bob got a hold of me and said, hey, Roger. I said, what? He said, I'm doing this podcast, me and Pastor Bob 2.0. We want to get the ex-members of Die Happy together and do a podcast. And I'm going, heck yeah, sounds good. But I didn't think Robin would be a part of it, but it turned out that Robin was actually in the podcast. So, and I didn't have any contact information for Robin either. And then we did the podcast together, and then I got a hold of him, and I said, Robin, man, I got some really good material. He said, well, let me hear it. And so I sent him a demo tape, and he was like, dude, this is good. I said, thank you very much. And then he made a tape for us, and oh gosh, it was fabulous. And that's when Robin got involved with the project Reign of Glory. Now, this was fantastic because Robin, now Nick and I did not have any lyrics to these songs. We just had the music part down for 10 songs. And Robin, these songs are so good, Kelly, because Robin has been storing up for 20 years, okay? Songwriters and vocalists are always writing songs. They're always, and I don't care. It's part of life for someone, a songwriter and a vocalist. Well, and he's had some songs that he just could not, and he's a musician too, of course, and he's been writing some songs and with guitar or whatever, and just nothing clicked. And then we'd present a song to him and go, dude, I know exactly, that's the song I've been looking for.
I've got the lyrics to match this.
Yes, okay. And so, oh man, every one of those songs, now Kelly, it's hard. It's hard to find good lyrics in the Christian metal community. I mean, there's some good lyrics out there, but sometimes they may lack substance. I don't want to rag on anybody, but good lyrics and good songs, good subject matter is it's elusive. And inspiration comes and inspiration leaves. But once again, we've got Robin, who he's been inspired for several years now. And all these songs lyrically are just absolutely fabulous. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. As you can see, and we're not all stuck in one vein. I mean, our first single was Welcome to Reality. Basically, Welcome to Reality. Let's bring everything into current events. In other words, we're not a 30-year-old band doing a 30-year-old thing. Okay, we're a brand new band. This is 2022. This is what's going on in life, and we're right here. All right, everybody, let's grab the bull by the horns and let's live in 2022. And so that reflects that. And then our next single that came out yesterday or the day before, it's all about glorifying Christ. Forever and ever, all the power, all the glory goes to Jesus Christ. And so we actually did a song. Look, because I hear a lot of people on social media going, "What happened to these Christian bands, man? They don't love Jesus anymore." And you'll hear that. Yeah, people going, "Oh, are they a Christian band?" You know,
you wouldn't know it from their lyrics.
Yeah, so we kind of, for our second single, we chose that one, basically, all the power, all the glory goes to Jesus Christ. Okay, in your face, you want Jerry's lyrics, here they are right there. And so we got, this album is coming out August the 12th is when it's going to be released, and we've got a couple of singles. I do not know if we're going to do another single or not. I really don't know. Probably not. Kelly, I am, every musician says, "Man, this is the best album I've ever done." Well, this album is so good. Now, something like with the Vengeance Human Sacrifice, I can't compare it to that, because that one was one of those things that was God fueled, God inspired. And that was the right place at the right time. That comes around once in a blue moon. I don't know how anything in my career, past, present, or future, will. That's the benchmark for me. Would be Vengeance Human Sacrifice. It had the songs, it had the timing, and everything.
And the production you guys got with Caesar. I'm going to slaughter his last name, Kalinowski.
Yeah,
it was just phenomenal.
Well, thank you. Now we signed with, okay, let me back up a little bit. We talk about Vengeance. We signed with Caesar Kalinowski. And we signed with him because his whole vision was, look, we're gonna cross over, you guys, we're gonna cross over. And that's what we wanted to do, because we knew the Christian metal bands at the time, they were signing these labels, and all they had was Christian bookstores. That's all they had for distribution. It was just a Christian market and a Christian bookstore. That was it. Yep. And Caesar was going, dude, we're going to bust loose. We're going to be on Enigma Records. We're going to do this, and we were going, heck yeah, let's do it. And so, Intense Records, I don't even know what the name of it was. But we recorded with him. Caesar was in the studio with us. And the production, everything was fantastic, man. We were excited. And pretty much right after we recorded the album, we get a call saying, "Oh, I love you guys, I'm in you, but I've sold you." I said, "What?"
Yep.
Yeah. You've been sold to a record company there in California. Now, Caesar was from New York or somewhere, I can't remember. And so next thing you know, we're with a Christian record company that pretty much we're in there with the Christian bookstores. So we were bummed out about that. Because that was one of the main reasons we signed with Caesar. But Caesar, obviously, he got a good business deal, and he sold the band. And I think that was Frontline, maybe.
It was.
And then I think Frontline became Forefront, I think, or sold it to Forefront. And then after that, Adele, a woman named Adele, bought the catalog, so she owns the Vengeance catalog.
Yeah, Adele Meisenheimer. She's a friend of mine,
and she is a fabulous woman, and she keeps everything alive, or she did, and then
she still does.
Her and Bill Bafford. Bill Bafford owns Rock's Records.
Yep,
another brag on Bill.
Really good friend of mine.
Yeah. Now Bill. He deserves to be in the Sanctuary Hall of Fame, and I'm probably going to create something one of these days. But Bill, he kept us alive. He kept Vengeance alive. In fact, he kept a lot of the classic metal alive by doing these reissues. I don't know how many times Human Sacrifice has been reissued. And in doing that, he's helped the band. In fact, I still get royalty payments 30 years later from Human Sacrifice, from Once Dead, and from Die Happy, because of Bill Rocks and his professionalism. Now he has to pay Adele some money, and he pays us writers royalties, and he does that. Adele is a true professional, and she is a
sweetheart.
Bill Rocks, or Bill Bafford, he's a true professional, and he pays his people.
Yes, he does.
And so, once again, most musicians, even secular musicians, they're not seeing a check in the mail every quarter. Now, there are some quarters where I don't receive anything, and there are others when I grin, and I do. And so, those guys that kept the music alive. And also, who else? And there's a guy named Anthony Gober. Right now, he's a T-shirt. I'm going to brag on those guys. He's a T-shirt guy. I think he's got Anchor merchandising. The dude is phenomenal because he actually pays his people. I've done a couple of business deals with Anthony. ChristianBandShirts.com. I don't know if he changed the name of it, but that's what he used to. That was his website at one time. ChristianBandShirts.com.
I think that's still it.
Yeah, he's the dude. Because I brag on these people because back in the day, between 84 and 94, the record companies were not honest. They were deceiving, and we got the short end of the stick. When someone actually comes along and is a true professional and cares about actually getting the musicians the money they deserve, I'm loving it, and I'm giving them props and kudos because those people were fantastic. I'll say it again: Adele Maz, Bill Bafford, Rocks Records, and Anthony Gober of Anchor Merchandising. Those guys rock.
We are really looking forward to hearing the new Reign of Glory album. So far, I've played one single. The second single will be played on this show that this interview is going to be on, and the response has just been fantastic. Who is the drummer, by the way?
Drummer is Jim Chaffin. Jim Chaffin, yeah, he's famous for being in the Crucified.
Yep. I know Jim.
Yeah, we go way back. Jim is, as far as the Christian drummer, as far as any freaking drummer, Jim has got the stuff. He is so good. He's a true musician, a true professional, because that's how he makes his living. That's how he buys groceries. He's got students, and of course, almost everybody that needs a great drummer, they're going to call Jim. And if he's, and that's another thing too. I call Jim about the thing, and most musicians, the first thing they'll say is, "Well, send me a tape. Let me hear it first." And I sent it to him, and I've sent tapes to Jim before, and he has denied them. Like, Roger, I love you, but no. But he said yes to this. He said, this is good stuff. And so Jim was absolutely, he's such a professional. And of course, he's got his own studio, and his drum sound is already set up. And so it was easy for me to work with him. He's just, gosh, he's so good. And a lot of the times on most of these songs, I was the last one to basically record. Of course, there's pre-recording, but and Jim was the last one too. We had pretty much everything. We had the vocals done, and Jim and I wanted to wait on the drums. As a bass player, I wanted to wait on the drums.
I understand that.
Before I laid down, I mean, I knew I had a template of what I was doing on these songs, but I definitely want to lock in with Jim. And so, I mean, his stuff, I analyze it. I listen to it over and over. And some of these songs, now, a lot of times I want to give him space too. My role as a bass player is to lay the foundation. And Nick is so freaking good. I'm hammering on root notes. Jim is so freaking good. Now that I'll give him space at times too. Now, as a general rule, me as a bass player, I'm going to lock in with the drummer. I'm going to lock in with his kick drums. In fact, we have one song that's a ballad that's absolutely fantastic, where pretty much every hit, every bass note is coincides with the kick drum hit. Almost through the whole song, I analyzed everything he was doing. It's so powerful. And then a lot of times with Jim, he'll do a quick flurry of double kicks, and I'm saying I'm not going to stay with that. I'm going to let that stand out. And then, and another part, dude, there's this other song. I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but we got this other song that me and Jim. We take it off into Never Neverland, okay? He's doing, and when I say take it off into Never Neverland, we're ending the song, and he goes into the double kick thing, right? I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah.
But we're cranking, and then I'm climbing up the scale, and I end this. We end the song. We fade out where I'm on the top note on the bass guitar. I'm talking about the high B, the smallest string, the highest fret you can get. And so I'm wearing it out, and he's double kicking like a crazy man, and that's how the song fades out. And so that was so much fun. And Jim's such a good drummer. He made life easy for me, and in fact, he made life easy for everybody. He's a true professional.
All right, I want to take this opportunity right quick. This is the part where I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, and for you to share your heart. Whatever you want to tell your friends and fans listening to this, literally all over the world. This is just the time for you to share what's on your mind or what's in your heart. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay. Now, here's what's on my heart. This Reign of Glory album is, I believe it was meant to be. Every song is really, really good. Musicianship is just cranking. Everything's really good about it. And it's an album that I will be proud of for the rest of my life. And I like other people to check it out too. And in fact, I think everyone will be blessed by the lyrics, by the vocal quality, drum quality, guitars, bass. It's all top notch, you guys. And that's my heart. I want it to go out as far as it can go. Of course, every musician wants their music to go far. But I think everybody's going to love this. And that's my heart. I believe it honors and glorifies Jesus Christ. And that's our goal as Christian musicians.
Amen.
Christian metalheads. Even if we're not musicians, even if we're listening, our goal is to raise our hands and give glory